Welcome back to another episode of the Chasing Tails Outdoor Podcast. My name is Walt, and I am joined by my co-host, Chase. Dude, we are doing something tonight that has got me amped. I'm already having trouble focusing at work. You know, I wake up to grunts and snort wheezes. You know, my mind is on the fall, and we got to talk about the first successful deer hunt of 2020.
Yeah, we did, man. Like you said, it has me jonesing even more to want to get out there. I've been jonesing. It's probably for about like a week now. I've been kind of going back and forth with somebody like text messaging, like we're talking tactics and all kinds of stuff. And I'm just like, will the season just get here already, man?
Yeah.
I mean, because we're used to hunting in hot weather anyways. So, I mean, that's no different anyways. It's just like, all right, man, and we still have a little ways to go, obviously. But it was good to have somebody down or on the show from South Florida that kicked his season off in like one of the best ways that you could possibly think about kicking a season off. And you'll all get to hear the story, but it was good to hear that Florida's season has kicked off and ours is just around the corner.
That's it, dude. Yeah, I'm amped. For all intents and purposes, I sit. Oh, that was making noise. Like a month out. I mean, I'm on cloud 9, dude. I mean, my bow is shooting like it's supposed to. I am just sitting on a freaking cache of trail cameras. I just can't find the time. Well, it's not even really the time. Every time I go out, the deer are still in their summer patterns, and I really hate to put cameras up when, you know, I'm going to be watching them in their summer patterns. So I need to just get them out there in areas that I know there's historical sign. But, dude, I've got 10 cameras that are begging to for some long soaks in the woods, dude, some forest bathing.
Yeah, you do have all them cameras, and I think, like, I use a lot of my cameras more in season than I would, like, right now. Like, right now, it's like, oh, cool, I got this buck, that buck, but a lot of them, like I said, they disperse out. You get new deer that come in. Once the velvet comes off, it's a totally different story, especially in Florida, because it almost seems like, boom, they're rutting a little bit right out of the gate. It may not be hardcore rut, but they definitely got does on the mind. Testosterone's building up.
Oh yeah.
So it's I've got some cameras out and stuff, and like I say, some of my historical areas, and just trying to see. Okay, cool. I've got this deer or that deer, or maybe some deer that I've got some history with, but I am itching for the season to get started so I can really get my trail cameras out and start getting some game plans going, especially, and I've got this new big piece of public that I'm going to be hunting, and we've put a couple of trail cameras out there so far, but I'm really looking forward to getting them out there kind of a little bit closer to the season to kind of give me an idea, okay, these are where the deer are this time of year, and develop a plan, man, to get in there and get after them.
Absolutely. Yeah, you know, I'm buying that Georgia non-resident license, and I'm going to be getting up there kicking my season off. And, you know, I think what I'm going to do is, if I just can't find good historical sign on those WMAs right now, what I'm probably going to do is just hang on to, you know, 5 or 6 cameras. And as the season progresses and that sign starts to show up, I'll probably just put them out there, and then I'll have those areas in the back of my mind for areas to survey moving forward. But, dude, we're talking about a dude today that braved a near miss of a hurricane down in South Florida who busted himself a beautiful chocolate rack 10-point buck. And you want to talk about a guy that is like the epitome of embracing the suck. Tonight's guest, Trent, is just a freaking animal. You can tell he just gets off on how difficult Florida is to hunt. And, I mean, that kind of attitude's contagious.
Yeah, it is. I mean, he really, bow hunting, it sounded like, was his real passion. He talked about that he hardly ever picks up a gun anymore, and just how the challenge of Florida really gets him going. Like, that's what drives him. The theme of it is, a lot of the theme is hard work pays off. Like you mentioned, Byron,
a lot
Whitetail
of hard
experience.
Work.
He's always talking about hard work pays off, and in South Florida, you've got to put the work in. I mean, just from listening to him, we've never been down there, so we haven't really had that experience yet. But he's been hunting down there for a while now, and you've really got to have a passion to stick with it, because he kind of talked about how some of these areas, it took him 3 or 4 years to learn. And you're not just going to get instant success down there. It doesn't sound like. So you really got to put the time in. And we've got some new listeners that are going to be hunting that area. And I think that was good. It will be good for them to hear that, hey, get out there, learn the areas, boots on the ground, use trail cameras, but don't necessarily expect to go out there and just light it up year one. I mean, it may take a while.
Yeah, no, totally. And on the topic of new listeners, I know we've got some new subscribers to Patreon, and we got to give them some love before we get on to the episode. So huge thanks to Jason and Dustin Miller for joining Patreon. You guys have been entered, as well as all the other Patreons that are existing, into the Carbon Fiber Timber Ninja Outdoors giveaway that we're doing. This is over $300 of the world's finest climbing system we're giving away, just to say thanks for supporting the show. So big shout out to everybody who has signed up to support the show. I know that Marco Polo group is booming, and Chase and I are brainstorming some exclusive content that'll show up in the Patreon group in the coming weeks. So yeah, man, I think with that, let's get everybody to the show to hear the story of what could be the first buck killed in the fall of 2020.
Let's do it.
All right, we are on the phone with Trent Streeter of South Florida. Dude, thank you for taking time out your evening to talk with us.
Absolutely, guys. Thank you.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I mean, any chance we get to kick off hunting stories on August 6th when we record this is a welcome change for us. So thank you for killing something so quickly.
It was about 2 hours into opening day, and I was home for the rest of the weekend.
Yeah. If only my season could start like that one day. Oh, man. Well, Trent, dude, you're from South Florida. Why don't you kind of give everybody the brief as to who you are and what you pursue down there?
Yeah, grew up in South Florida. Have been hunting a lot in the Midwest since I was a kid. And as I got left college and moved back down here, I got back into archery in a big way and decided I might as well start chasing our swamp whitetails as close to my house as I could find them, and just led me down this journey of chasing deer in the deepest, darkest hellholes you could possibly imagine.
I don't think FWC is going to contact you for like a glowing recommendation as to why people.
I didn't say I don't love it. I do it for a reason. I'm either crazy or I really, really love it. No, but we have really, really cool deer and cool deer population down here, and I love being outside, and I love the landscape that South Florida offers. The giant pine flats meeting cypress heads and meeting oak hammocks, and I just think it's a really cool area and a really cool way to chase deer that growing up deer hunting I've never been able to experience. So it's just something totally different and new and really exciting, and something that if you put the work in is extremely rewarding to get one of these deer down.
Yeah, I think it's definitely a good friend of our podcast, Byron Horton, has got a TV or YouTube show, and his catchphrase is always hard-earned bucks. And
Mm-hmm.
exactly what it is. The more time I spend in Florida, I think we hold claim to the hardest earned bucks. That's my opinion. What do you think, Trent?
That sounds right. I think that wet feet and foot rot and miles and miles and miles through waist deep water is what it takes down here, and something super cool about that.
Yeah. You can't get it anywhere else, that's for sure. Not to the scale that we do. I think it's a cool state, man. It's really different. I know it's not gonna our dialogue isn't gonna attract the whitetail fanatics finest, but it's
yeah. I don't think the buck commander boys are gonna be making a trip down here anytime soon. But
they should.
Yeah, I was hunting. I think it was 95 degrees. We had a hurricane watch in effect, and I was hunting the rut. So that's what it's like hunting in South Florida.
Opening day.
Opening day.
Yeah.
Opening day.
Well, Trent, they haven't always opened the season down there as early as they have, correct? I mean, I think it finally got changed because they figured out that the bucks were rutting so early down there. Is that true?
It was a week or two later. It wasn't crazy. It was still super early, but it was
Okay.
maybe a week or two later. This year's the earliest I can remember it for sure.
Right. And you kind of mentioned before we got on that you said they've been rutting for at least a month now
Oh yeah,
down there.
we've seen them cutting lanes and hanging some new stands, and have them on camera starting to rut like last week of July, like hard. So they've been going at it for some time already.
Wow. And they're like, and they just show signs like their necks are all swollen and all that good stuff.
Our deer aren't that big, so tiny swollen necks, but they'll be full. They'll be full curled lips, chasing after does, silly, just running does all over as fast as they can.
Okay. How long does that last down there? Or is it just like a trickle for
So
most of the season?
it's not like the Midwest where it just goes. We'll have like the first round of does go in and it'll kind of taper off, but we'll get another big round here in a week or so. They'll just seem like it's a rut all over again. The does cycle, and the does will cycle all year. Fawns will drop crazy times. You'll have random does just cycling in the most random times, like November, December down here, and dropping does. It's pretty odd.
How do you even approach that?
You hope for the best. Spend a lot of time on the stand.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think it's kind of cool that not everybody gets to start their season off like rut. I mean, most people have to wait generally a month and a half or so to 2 months, and then some areas even longer before the rut hits, especially in Florida, that could be the case. But it's kind of cool.
Yeah, and I love archery hunting. A majority of my hunting is with a bow. Very rarely do I pick up a rifle anymore. So it's really, really cool that we have the start of our archery season in full-blown rut. I don't think any other state does that. That's really, really cool to me.
Right. Yeah, that's true. There's a few areas up where I'm at because we start September 19th. It's always, I think, like the third Saturday of September up here. And we're talking about the rut is like even some of the counties are up here they'll be 20 to 30 miles to the south of where I'm at. They'll be in full rut like opening day up here. Some of the bucks. And then where I'm at, the deer won't go into rut till probably maybe a month or so after the season has started where I'm at. So I think that's just kind of neat on Florida in general on how when the rut actually starts. Some people can get it in bow season. Where I'm at, it's mainly like when our muzzleloader season opens is when you see a majority of the rutting, because like you mentioned, they're breeding does. It seems like almost year round. I have a doe on trail camera that I sent Walter the other day that looks pregnant as can be, like she's fixing to drop a fawn up here. And then I've got some that I've been seeing for a while, and then other ones have already started to lose their spots. So it's just all over the gambit, even up here.
Yeah, that's wow. Have you ever looked at the Fwc Rut Map by any chance?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's a weird
And
thing.
then it's just what's with the random circle that's like January 31st, like the middle of the state. There's just a random circle of deer.
Yeah. Yeah, that is true. I think it was that Zone B or something like that. Yeah, they open up later. It's weird that just that one little isolated pocket that opens up like in October or something like that. I'm just like, geez, it's just so strange.
Yeah, it's a fun state. I take that back. If the Buck Commander guys get a hold of this, come on down.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, you challenge anybody to come on down is what I would do. All these guys that killed giant bucks in the Midwest be like, come on down to South Florida.
Yeah.
And just kill a buck. It doesn't even have to be a giant buck.
Yeah.
You say you don't know of another state that does that. There's a unique little section of Georgia on the coast that the third week of archery season tends to be peak rut.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's really weird, man. It always, we talked about before we hit go, how there's a lack of like relatable content for Florida. Southeast Georgia is even more weird in that regard because the majority of the state's a November rut, but then in Southwest, extreme Northeast, and then extreme Southeast, it's all over the map, and it's just pine flats and cypress heads, like you said. It's kind of similar to that. So just you might enjoy that little tidbit of random useless information. What does your, before we go into the story, what does your preparation going into the season look like? For me, I'm just now getting my cameras out. Do you run cameras, and do you run them starting in May, June?
So on this piece of private that I got access to, so this is my second year hunting this particular piece of private. Last year was the first year we hunted it, and it was kind of a learning experience. Last year we kind of got late privilege to it and took some time to get used to it. So we kind of knew better how the deer reacted going into this year. So we started setting cameras in probably May, right after turkey season, a couple months after turkey season ended. We probably started setting cameras there, and I did the same on all the public that I typically hunt. I started setting cams on the public as well. So I've had cam soaking for a long time. I feel like down here, cameras are a huge tool to try to get an idea if you're in a buck's bedroom or not.
Right. I think a lot of people are trying to focus on figuring out where their bedrooms are at these days, especially Florida, where it's almost seems like they can, I don't know about down in South Florida, but I know up here is that they can literally almost bed anywhere up here. So is that the same down in South Florida?
Yeah, but if you find a consistent bedding area, I mean, I hunt almost exclusively pinch points or bedding areas. If I find consistent bedding, I'm going to hunt there all day. I really, really like hunting bedding area because they'll eat absolutely anything. I'm not going to hunt food down here. They'll eat absolutely anything. Travel corridors can be hit or miss, but if there's consistent bedding and it's fresh beds, I know they're going to be deer coming into that at some point throughout the day, especially with how hot it gets. They're going to be moving into this deep, thick, shaded bedding area at some point. So I'll hunt trails to and from bedding most of the time.
Okay. And do you find those areas? How do you find the bedding? Are you just a lot of boots on the ground type deal in your cameras?
A lot of boots on the ground, and then I'll start setting cameras. If I find a bunch of deer droppings and a bunch of matted grass, and I visit it 2 or 3 times, and it's consistently somewhere in that area, and I can see the trail they're using to get in and out, because most of it is extraordinarily thick. Where they're actually going to bed is super, super thick. I mean, I've seen them bed down in the middle of the cow field, so they really, a lot of the deer don't care. But
right.
A lot of the stuff that they use, especially this early in the season, is very thick cypress stones where it cools off, and it's just not nearly as hot. Gotcha. So I'll just focus on getting my sat maps and looking for those areas and doing boots on the ground and following the trails until I can't walk through anymore, and just look for fresh beds. And
okay, well, what's a good card pull for you? So say you go to check your cameras. What would that kind of look like on your public land and on your private?
Public land, any single buck on it, good card pull. Ecstatic. It can be a spike. I'm stoked. Public land, yeah, absolutely anything. If I see a turkey on one of my pulls down here and I see an Osceola on it, I am through the roof. I just love seeing them. But yeah, any deer on public, I'm happy. Even if I have a good group of does that come through consistently, I'm happy with that on the public. Private, this farm that we got access to, we kind of it was one of my buddies went to law school with a guy who owns this farm, doesn't hunt, wanted to get into hunting. So we kind of made this deal like, hey, we'll manage the farm, hang all the stands, set all the cameras, do all the legwork, catalog what herd we have here if we can hunt it with you. And he said, yeah. Turns out the guy doesn't really like to hunt all that much and still lets me and my buddy hunt it.
Wow.
So deal of the century.
God, yeah. Jeez.
But so we've been doing a lot of work on trying to manage the herd out there, and it's a great little piece. And just see what we have. So we know most of the bucks that we're seeing at this point. We know, but we'll kind of have an idea before we pull a cam exactly what deer are going to be on it and how often.
Okay. So on your private, would you say you're targeting specific bucks, and maybe on public you're just targeting deer?
Correct. Public, it's hit so hard and so often down here, unless it's one of the ultra good quotas, that I'm just hunting deer. I'm looking for any deer sign. I want to be where the deer want to be on the public. And then on the private, we have our whole hit list and everything. It's a good enough area that we can have a whole hit list of bucks.
Interesting. Such a stark contrast between the two.
Yeah. It's just a lot of pressure. For how tough hunting is down here, there's a lot of people who like to do it. It's a lot of pressure.
I could see that. What are the bag limits like down there? Do they differ from the rest of the state? Do you still get 5 deer?
It's still 5 deer. Our antler restrictions changed a little bit. So I'm in I forgot if the private's in A1 or A3, but we're in the one that it's still 3 points on one side, 10-inch main beam. But right next door, it goes to 5-inch main beam, 2 points on the side is legal. We just have slight, lower deer management buck limits, but it's the same amount, 5.
So we've heard that a lot of the public land down there doesn't let you shoot does. Is that true?
Correct.
So basically, they're expecting you to kill $5.
Yeah, that's what I did last year. Yeah, so a couple of the romp and stomps will have a doe week where you can kill does. A couple of them only during archery season you can take does. But for the most part, it's no doe take on any of the public down here.
Wow. So when a couple episodes back we were talking about guys that we knew there were people out there that killed $5. Evidently, Trent's one of those guys. So we were talking about how things have changed a lot in this state, and how you now have a reporting system, and it used to be 2 deer a day, and it's just a lot is changing quick.
Yeah, I like the reporting system. I got stopped with a buck in my truck at a WMA coming out, and he checked to make sure I recorded it in the field, and I think that's definitely a good step. I don't think that it's a burden or an issue, really. I have to do that in every other state that I've hunted, so why not do it here?
Yeah, I think it makes sense, and it helps Florida actually track how many, the deer numbers and how many deer are being taken each year, because before that there's really been nothing. So any number I've ever seen from Florida, I've just gone, that's not accurate, because there's no way they can know, because there's no reporting system. And I would know people that would take the 2 deer a day every day to heart. You know what I mean? So there is no way they would know how many deer were being taken in the state of Florida. And I think now it kind of is at least going to give everybody in Florida a good idea of, okay, this is how many deer were taken last year and how many hunters we have and whatnot like that. So I think it's great. And we did probably need a limit for sure. I'm actually glad that they at least came up with a limit.
Yeah, especially if there's people like
Trent.
Trent.
Like 72 deer or something before.
Yeah, exactly. I think we figured it out. If you hunted from zone A to zone D, I mean, it's well over 300. If you could kill 2 a day every day, I mean, you could be well over 300 deer in the state of Florida.
That's absolutely insane.
For anybody listening, we always stopped ourselves well short of that at about 40 or 50. We're not that greedy. So.
Yeah, of course, man.
Yeah, why do you think I only got 5 last year?
Yeah, exactly. That's right. Exactly.
Oh, man.
It definitely made me pickier last year. I can say that for sure. I had a great season last year, but there were some that I probably – on some of my private, where I'm like, well, I think I need to take this deer out or whatnot. But then I'm like, well, no, because if I do that now, then I may that tag's gone now, and my chances of going somewhere else, because I had plans on going to Zone D to hunt with Walt and stuff like that. But if I do that, then my season's over. So it definitely made me a little bit more picky than normal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think, and that's good for the state.
Sure. Yeah, I think once the numbers are made public, I think everybody will agree that the population should probably come up, and the first step in that is knowing how many we shoot. But
Yeah.
the buck that we're talking about today, I'm looking at it right now. This has to be perhaps one of the prettiest bucks I've seen. It's good mass all the way through, chocolate rack. Let's set the stage for the person sitting at home right now, sitting on his back deck, sweating, drinking a rum and coke. He's thinking about hunting season. Kind of frame this conversation. I have a feeling this was on this piece of private that you got access to manage,
Yeah.
right? Okay.
Yeah.
When did you first identify this deer, and identify him as a buck you were going to go after?
So this is a deer that we had zero history with, had never seen before. Right up until maybe a week and a half before season, we did our last cam check, and he was in one picture. We had one picture of this deer, and he immediately was our number one hit list buck. He was our number one. We just had one picture, had no idea if he was just rutting, coming through. We have a good doe population. We never touch the does on this piece of private, even though it's allowed there. So I don't know if he was just coming through, whatever, but we saw him, immediately our number one. That was the only picture we had until I got to stand the morning of opener, and I pulled a cam on the way to my stand and checked it in the tree before first light, and there was another picture of him on that cam from the night before, like 2 a.m.
Really?
Yeah, and that's the only pictures we had of.
Do you think this is a buck that blew up from last year to this year, or do you think he's just one that you just never got a photo of?
I think he just came in from a different property. I don't think it's a deer we had on the property at all.
Yeah, it makes sense. If they are rutting down there, you always get those bucks that just kind of cruise through from other areas, especially, who knows, you might have had a hot doe in that area.
Yeah.
And
Well, I
she
know
brought
we
him
did.
over.
We'll get into that a little bit later
Okay.
in the story.
Nice.
So you did your first sit, you pull the card while doing it, and you had this photo at 2 a.m. What did your next step look like? Because you don't have any history with him. How did you go about targeting this whitetail?
Well, at this point, I'm already in the stand for opening day, so I was like, "Oh, he's still around. This is awesome." I texted my my buddy who I was hunting with, like, "Hey, I have a picture of that buck." He's like, "Oh, dude, we should probably sit later just in case he comes by middle of the day or something, because they're on their feet all day right now running." And we were planning on getting down around 11, so I think we changed our plan to 1. That's the only thing we adjusted. We were just going to sit from 5 to 1.
Why'd you pick the stand?
Honestly, I was going to pick the stand my buddy chose because we had much better action back there. He was on the very, very backside neighboring a buddy's property, and I wanted that stand, and lost in rock, paper, scissors, and I sat that stand because of that.
Now, are you saying
Nice.
that? Go ahead. Yeah. Are you saying that because he's going to listen to this and you don't want him to know that you paused and hold him, or? Because if I feel like I won the better spot and my buddy shoots this deer, I'm calling BS on that real fast.
We literally played rock, paper, scissors to hunt the spot he was in.
So tell me about this doe situation that you've got going on. You kind of touched on that.
So this property is a big rectangle.
Mm-hmm.
It's a big rectangle. It's just over 600 acres. The front half, so the front 320 acres is complete cow pasture, just wide open cow pasture.
Mm-hmm.
And over last year, we have a big boar panther and 1, maybe 2 female cats on camera pretty consistently.
Whoa.
And that's moved a lot of the deer into this cow pasture. Like, you can put out feed, you can do whatever you want. They're not going to touch it. The panthers are keen on it. So a lot of these deer moved into this cow pasture for safety.
Makes sense.
And it's a giant tease hunting them, because if you are hunting a cow pasture, they're never going to get within bow range. A stalk would be almost impossible, with the cows blowing up your spot and everything else. So it's just a bunch of deer have moved. So we see a lot of deer out in this cow pasture. The backside of the property is ponds, big cypress heads, a small pine flat before it hits the neighbors, and a big oak hammock, which is where our other good stand was. That we had a lot of activity in this oak stand. So I was sitting right on the edge of where the cow field, like almost in the middle of the rectangle where the cow field meets the back half of the property. In like an ambush spot where they come over from the cow field, and behind me is all super, super thick bedding that they all come into either in or out of to go bed in this really thick stuff right on the other side of the cow pasture. So I'm sitting in stand opening morning right at first light, and between a little break in two trees, you can see the cow pasture. So I can pull up my binoculars and I can glass deer every once in a while. And I see this buck. And he is just dogging these two does, just chasing them, just absolutely getting after them. Won't leave him alone. They want nothing to do with him. His lips curled. He's chasing after him, drooling, just wants these does. And he's about 500-600 yards away in this cow field. And I'm like, dude, that's him. So now I'm sitting in stand, haven't seen any deer anywhere in my vicinity. I'm watching our number one buck just chasing these does away from me in this cow field that goes forever, like a mile-long cow field.
Did you call to him to get him to come in closer, or what?
He was too far, so I just waited, hung out. About 7:30, he's chasing these does, and then I kind of lose him to the left side of the property where he's where there's like a tree line blocking the cow field from the backside of the property. So he runs over to that side, and then I'm sitting there, and I'm like just watching the tree line. I have a little doe that comes out and is just like feeding in a little field, probably 15 yards from me, under my stand. And I see the shape of a buck walking the cow fence line to the cow pasture, just walking the cow line. Don't know what deer it is. I can tell it's a bigger body deer. It's definitely not a doe because our does are real small down here. So it's a better deer. I watch him. He disappears. I'm like, okay, at least there's a buck in the area. I didn't call, didn't do anything. He was probably about 100 yards away from me. And then he must have jumped the fence at some point, and he walks over to my right and just standing there, and it's him. So he's just standing to my right, 80, 85 yards away, hanging out, looking like he's going to walk straight into the bedding. So I took out my grunt tube, gave him 2 grunts. He immediately looks over to me, comes into 55. Looking, like, trying to, like, see, like, where's this guy? He's definitely, like, the big boy on campus. Like, he's the baddest, like, trying to look for a fight. And then he sees the doe under me, and I give him a doe bleat.
Oh.
He immediately charges into the doe bleat. He sees the doe just coming in hot. But he's coming in on my open side. I wasn't expecting him really to come from my right, and I'm in a skinny little palm tree. So he comes in from my right. At this point, he gets to 11 yards. Can't stand up, can't draw, can't do anything. He's on my backside. I have to completely rotate around. Don't know what to do. He gets downwind of me. Picks up my wind, takes 4 big jumps. Boom, 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 boom. And he still sees that doe in the field, like, not bothered. So he's like looking at her like, okay, maybe it's okay. Like, that was weird. Like, too horned up to care. So I get to stand up, and I have to shoot like around this palm tree. And I'm shaking so bad, it's probably like a family of squirrels are in the leaves of this palm tree. So he's like looking at the palm tree, like looking back at the doe, is like, something's weird. He's at 31. And I drew back and got around the palm tree and was able to just hit him perfect at 31 yards on my backside, right in front of the bedding.
God. How far did he go? Did you get to watch him drop?
Yeah, he made it 30 yards and then got woozy and tipped over 30 yards down the trail to the thick bedding.
That's awesome, man. I think only in Florida do bucks in full rut still like retain their sense of like awareness. The idea that he winded you and still bounded off mid rut like that is such a like a Florida deer thing, man.
Yeah, I mean, he definitely wasn't like, if this was any time of year, that deer was gone.
Right.
Because it was windy. Like, that tree was moving good. We still had like some bands just came through that morning from that hurricane, and it was blowing pretty good. So my wind was ripping at this guy, and he only took a couple jumps and was like, "What is going on?" So that was it. And then he just was immediately locked back onto that doe.
All right, Chase, what are your first thoughts?
Well, I mean, like you said, it's opening day and you're getting like full on rut action. I mean, to me, that's just awesome to begin with. And as far as the winding, you kind of mentioned that maybe he's not a resident on that 600 acres. Like, you think he came from somewhere else?
Yeah, we have zero history with him.
Oh, I see where you're going.
Okay. So, I mean, I can kind of see maybe him doing that because if that buck's not familiar with that area, maybe it was just one of those things like, oh, wait a second, that was kind of weird. But also he's rut crazy. So I've seen, like I said, I've had spots where bucks were I was like hardcore chasing and I made one like little metallic noise and the buck locked up, turned around and went the other way. Just like quit chasing the doe, was like, nah, I'm not coming out there at all. And I'm like, what the heck, man? You're supposed to still keep going. You're supposed to like just look around and go, oh, that was just, I don't know what that was, and keep going after this doe. But I mean, he straight up was like, I mean, he locked up. I mean, he was on a full sprint, locks up, like looks both ways, and he makes a 180 and just takes off the other way. And I'm like, man, you were hardcore on that doe. Come on, man. I actually ended up shooting him because he went around me. I think maybe to try to go around and get back out into the opening from a different area. But yeah, I mean, that's the kind of stuff that you dream of on opening day. You don't even have to wait 2 months to get hardcore rutting action before. And it's funny how it all kind of worked out for you. Like you lost in rock, paper, scissors, yet you ended up ultimately with the better spot. Now, have you heard about saddle hunting, or would you even been able to hunt out of a saddle in a palm tree like you were? Have you ever even thought about saddle hunting?
Yeah, I feel like a saddle would have been better. We just have a hang on this tree just to get in and out easy. I feel like a saddle would have definitely made it easier because I would have already been in that like draw position and I would have been able to shoot him at 10 yards.
Right.
So
what you're saying is you're ordering a saddle soon?
I've already been thought about it. Just going in 4 miles on a piece of public down here, like to not carry a 25-pound climber would be luxury.
Yeah. Yeah, that's how I was gonna ask you about that because you were talking about you were hunting from a stand there, but obviously when you're going into your big public land over there, you're hiking in with all of your stuff. So it sounds like you hunt out of a climber when you go out there.
Interesting.
So depending how confident I am, sometimes I'll just drag the game card out with me through all the nasty thick stuff and just attach the stand to that and just rip it through.
So I got a question for you. Just conflicting parts to this that I just want to there's got to be more to the story. You mentioned that all these deer were staying in the cow pasture for obviously protection from the cougar. Why were you still hunting the thick stuff?
Because bow hunting in the cow field, I did that all of last year.
Gotcha.
Because there's so many deer. It's just so hard to have, it's just luck of the draw to have a deer come into you. But just because it's literally 300 acres and it's pretty skinny, so it just goes forever. So you're just sitting up there watching deer all day. But to get one inside 60 yards, let's say, is fat chance. So we just kind of gave up on that for archery hunting. But a lot of them still come into the thick bedding that's right between the line of the cow field and the backside. A lot of them still come into that bedding. A lot of them still go all the way back to the cypress to go feed. I mean, we have the same bucks on a camera at the far end of the cow field at night, all the way in the backside of the property on this little pinch point that goes into the big oak hammocks that leads to the neighbors.
So you're basically hunting maybe some limited bedding, but could it also have been like a travel corridor as well?
Yeah, it's a huge travel corridor.
Okay.
Huge travel corridor.
That makes sense. It's funny. I don't think there's anybody anywhere else in the South that there's competing predators with the whitetail hunter that I can think of.
Yeah, our bear problem is absurd, and the cougars are starting to get bad. Like, we barely have, the only pigs on this property are gigantic.
Really?
Gigantic. My buddy shot a sow that we swore up and down it was a boar. I'll send you. I have a video of him shooting it and then me picking it up. I'll send to you guys. But this sow was pushing 300 pounds easy.
That's a big pig.
The only pigs that, like, all the piglets get eaten by the cougars. We just have a couple of big giant pigs left on the farm at this point.
Wow. So you think the piglets are easier prey for?
Oh yeah, much easier.
Interesting.
They make a ton of noise. They stink. It's way easier for them than a quiet little fawn sitting in a bush.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, they can't escape quite as fast as a deer can either.
Oh yeah. They're sitting just perfect for a panther to get them. I have a video of a panther walking by the stand too. I can send to you guys.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. Do y'all get good fawn recruitment down there then?
You'd be surprised. Yeah, pretty good, because we watched a bunch of fawns come up, and we had a bunch of does with their little yearlings that just dropped their spots. It's pretty good. It's surprisingly good.
Okay. So you've got bear, you've got what? Python, gators, panthers. Do y'all have coyotes down there?
Yep, coyotes. We got bobcats. We got coyotes.
Golly.
Gum, man. Them deer got to be jumpy down there. Are they super jumpy?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
I can only imagine. What about on a shot? Hold on. What about on a shot with, like, your bow? Like, are they, like, jumping the string hardcore down there or not?
I've never ever had an issue with them jumping a string. I've had more of an issue in Kentucky on my piece up there with them jumping strings than here for whatever reason.
Interesting.
I think it's just too hot. They just don't want to deal with it.
They hear the arrow coming. They're like, "Take me now."
Yeah, it's just like, as good a time as any.
Exactly. I'll die a quick death as opposed to a panther jumping on me.
We have a lot of, well, I wouldn't say a lot of, but we have had an influx of South Florida hunters join the podcast. One of our patrons, Chris, he is down there. He is like, we're talking real new to hunting. He has been going out there and brush busting and putting forth the effort and putting out trail cameras. And I'm curious what your advice to him would be. I think, Chase, wasn't he at Corbett at one point?
Yeah, he's done Corbett, and I think he's got a big cypress quota hunt or something like that lined up too.
Yep, sounds like a South Florida boy.
Yep.
Yeah, he's definitely down in your area.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure. What is your advice to him? He's trying to figure this area out. There aren't a whole lot of good resources. What would you tell him if he was listening?
Give it 3 to 4 years of all-day sits and putting it in. You'll figure it out eventually.
There you go,
Well, that's
Chris.
actually good to hear, though. At least he's speaking the truth.
Yeah. Yeah.
So just not to have super high expectations your first year.
Go in. Yeah, that's exactly what it is. Because I've had buddies that are just like get fed up, especially bow hunting. I've had buddies that get involved and they just it's just they go in with a very different expectation from what it is. You have to embrace the suck. You have to know that it's going to be hot. It's going to be buggy. It's going to be miserable. You're going to have to walk way farther than you want to. That's just all part of it. You're going to have to put the months of time in advanced scouting that still might not even pay off. It's just the way it works down here. It's super pressure. You're going to have somebody set up right on top of you. One of the spots I killed a buck in Corbett last year, one of my Corbett bucks, I went back this year to check out, and it's deep in. And somebody had hung a ladder stand, even though you're not allowed to hang ladder stands yet, literally on the tree I hunted out of.
God. How did he get it back there?
Random spot. It's the buggy guy. They don't care.
Oh, I got you.
Rip the buggies wherever they want.
Well, talk about the buggies a little bit for everybody. Like, what's that about?
It's kind of like a boat. It's good to have a friend with a buggy, but it's just going to be a headache if you have your own buggy, sort of deal.
Right.
It's a good tool. It definitely is something that has its place hunting down here. It'd be impossible to hunt a huge amount of our accessible lands without a buggy. It's just we need a better culture of people with buggies because they really don't like following whatever rule, like stay on trail. Because like I'm on foot, I'm not taking a buggy out there. So if I hike where I'm 2 miles between any numbered buggy trails in this spot that I know there's deer, like a buggy could just rip right up on me. And it's super, super frustrating, especially hunting on foot, that I'm 4 miles deep and somebody's just racing their buggy out there like 10 minutes before first light. They're getting out there on a buggy and just kind of ruining it. So it's just something that it's impossible for FWC to enforce because you can't cover all that ground. I don't know how they would possibly enforce it, but yeah, if we just had a better just culture around the buggy hunting where people stayed on trail when they're supposed to. Because you can go off trail during small game season. You can go wherever you want and scout and do whatever you want on your buggy. But during season, just stay on trail, please.
It kind of sounds like it's one of those things where you either have to acknowledge that they're going to be people that abuse it and live with it, or just ban it outright. And that just seems like it's going to end up ruining, a lot of people's time. And that just, it's unfortunate, but.
Well, I figured that he could tell the alligator story before he gets off, just so some of our northern listeners can really get an appreciation for South Florida hunting at its finest.
So I had a quota hunt in this place called the Poi. It's a WMA down here. So I had a muzzleloader quota hunt there, and I'm sitting in the tree, and I have a life flight helicopter fly about 30 feet over my tree stand. Just scares the bejesus out of me. Flies right over me. I start hearing a bunch of like cop cars and stuff, and I'm like kind of in the middle of nowhere. They're like driving this like random telephone pole road to something. Later I find out a guy was hiking around Corbett pig hunting, stepped over a log onto a 10-foot alligator and turned his leg around for him, and had to get medevac. So that's also what you have to deal with hunting South Florida. You can step on gators, snakes, lots of water moccasins. I should start guiding.
Yeah,
I'd be good at bringing in clients.
Yeah, man. It just makes me want to get out there even more after hearing that story. Yeah, for sure.
I mean, so for people who don't know what turn his leg around, when a gator grabs you, it spins. So he got took for a ride quick, and it wasn't a pleasant one.
They call it the death roll, which is pretty apt. Yeah, but apparently he almost bled out, and they found him in time.
Holy
it was
cow.
tough finding him because he was kind of in the middle of nowhere. But they found him in time, and I guess they reattached his leg, so it's still there. I'm not sure what his recovery has looked like. I kind of followed up with the story a few months after it happened. But his leg got put back on, so ended up as good as it can to get grabbed by a 10-foot gator, I suppose.
Oh man, dude, that's awesome. Well, I appreciate you taking time out your evening. Where can people find you and find photos of this this beautiful whitetail?
My Instagram is at Trent Street, and can find me there. And I'm pretty sure I'm public, so you can just look away at all the ridiculous nonsense I get up to.
Sounds good, buddy. If you'll hang on 1 second, I want to chat with you after I close this out. Guys.
Sorry to the Florida Tourism Board and the Southeast Coastal Georgia Tourism Board.
That's it. Oh, man. Oh, well, guys, deer season is upon us. We have officially kicked it off with our first story. If you're jonesing as badly as I am, there's a whole litany of podcasts you can go back and listen to, and we hope that you do. And tell people about the podcast. But most importantly, no matter what you do, get outside and enjoy the great outdoors.